Did you know that Dark and Ghost used to be the only type combo with 0 weaknesses, making it effectively one of the best typing for defense? But since the introduction of the Fairy type, it became its only weakness. Now, no type combination has 0 weaknesses, which begs the question, what are the best type combinations for every single type in regards to defense? Well, after looking at this spreadsheet of all the type combinations for far too long, I've made a script that will blow your socks off, so let's dive in. Keep in mind I'll be using these phrases, so here's what they mean if you didn't know already. And the goal of these combinations are to have the lowest amount of weaknesses with the highest amount of resistances possible for maximum defense capabilities within that type's limitations. Starting with the normal type, its type properties are just 1 weakness to fighting, so we need a type that won't add any more weaknesses, and something that adds resistances since normal type doesn't have any. Normal is also immune to Ghost, and funny enough, the best type combination would be with the Ghost type as well. This replaces its fighting weakness to Dark, but now resists 2 types and is immune to normal, fighting, and ghost, so not bad. Next we have the Fire type, which has 3 weaknesses but resists 5 types. The best combination for this type is with Water. This keeps the same number of weaknesses, but it changes the weakness to Water to Electric. But because a Pokemon with this typing would have access to Water type moves, it can use its Stab Boost super effectiveness to defend itself against its Rock type weakness. This type only resists Bug and Fairy, but it takes 1/4 of the damage from these 3 types. And for future notice, you'll see in this list that anything paired with the Steel type usually match other great combinations in ranking because of Steel's great defensive properties. This isn't always the case, but it is for the Fire and Steel combo. It's weak to Water and Fighting and has a 4 times weakness to Ground, but resists 4 types, and 5 types do 1/4 of the damage to this type combo. So it's just as good but in different ways to Fire and Water. Next we have the Water type. Water's only weak to Grass and Electric and resists 4 types. It has 2 best type combinations, the first being with Electric, which again only replaces 1 weakness from Electric to Ground and the other still Grass, but resists 4 types and Steel now does 1/4 of the damage. And the Water type Stab Boost moves can defend against its Ground weakness decently. The next best Water type matchup is with Ground. This is because Ground is immune to Electric, so it removes 1 of the 2 weaknesses, leaving this type combo with being only very weak to Grass with 4 times the damage, but it does resist 4 types. The next typing is Electric, which is only weak to Ground and resists Electric, Flying, and Steel. So trying to keep a low amount of weaknesses, the best combo for this type is with Fairy. It gives it another extra weakness to Poison, but an immunity to Dragon, and a resistance to 5 types. Another combo with the same effectiveness is Electric and Ghost. Although this combo does have 3 weaknesses, Ghost types usually have the ability Levitate, which in this case is the only ability the Pokemon with this type combo can learn. So effectively removing the Ground type weakness and making it only have 2, it also resists 5 types and is immune to Normal and Fighting, which is really sweet. And finally, the last best Electric type combo is with the Flying type, which is only weak to Ice and Rock but resists 5 types and is immune to Ground. Moving on to the Grass type, which has 5 weaknesses normally and resists 4 types, the best defensive combo is with Steel. This brings its weaknesses down to only 2 types, but Water does do 4 times the damage. That's okay though, because this combo resists a massive 8 number of types, as well as being super resistant to the Grass type and is immune to Poison, which was one of Grass's weaknesses. Another Grass combo which is just as effective is with the Fire type. It does have 3 weaknesses, but the Grass typing can be used as stab against Rock, so it can decently defend itself. This combo also resists 3 types and is super resistant to Grass as well. Next is the Ice type, which normally has 4 weaknesses and resists only 1 type. The best combo would be with Water, which keeps the same number of weaknesses but replaces Fire and Steel with Grass and Electric. But again, because Water type is super effective against Rock, it can take care of one of this combo's weaknesses with Stab Boost. Sadly, this combo only resists itself with taking 1/4 of the damage from Ice. Another combo that's tied in effectiveness is Ice and Electric, because again, it has 4 weaknesses, but Ice is super effective against Ground, so it can be used as stab to try defeating those types of Pokemon. It also has 3 types it resists, which is very decent. Next we have the fighting type, which naturally has 3 weaknesses and resists 3 types. The best type combination is with the steel type. This combo is weak to fire, fighting, and ground, but resists 6 types, and bug and rock do 1/4 of the damage, as well as being completely immune to poison, so by far the best combo with fighting. Moving on to the poison type, which naturally only has 2 weaknesses, but resists 5 types. Its best combination would be with water. This adds an extra weakness, but the water type can now stab its ground type counter, which gives it a better fighting chance, as well as having 8 types it resists. Matching this combo is poison and steel, which is weak against fire and is very weak to ground, but resists 6 types and has 3 types that only do 1/4 of the damage, and is immune to poison. Moving on to the ground type, which normally has 3 weaknesses, resists 2 types, and is immune to electricity. The best combo is with the water type. This combo is only very weak to grass, but resists 4 types and again is immune to electricity. And matching this combination is ground with fire. It has ground as its weakness, and water does 4 times the damage, but resists 5 types and is immune to electricity. So basically 1 extra weakness for 1 extra resistance. And now for the flying type, it has 3 weaknesses and resists 3 types, but is immune to ground. Its best matchup is of course with the steel type. It only has 2 weaknesses, but resists 6 types and is super resistant to grass and bug, as well as being immune to poison and ground. So out of the 10 types we discussed so far, here are the top 5 best ones. I rank them by adding up all the number of weaknesses and resistances of a type, then subtracting the number of weaknesses from the number of resistances. Also, 4 times weaknesses, 1/4 resistances, and immunities count for 2 points, so keep that in mind for the tally column. Funny enough, they all have steel as a secondary typing. Next we have the psychic type. Naturally, this type has 3 weaknesses and resists fighting and psychic. Since psychic is a neutral type with a low amount of resistances, the best combo would be with the normal type, since it's only weak to bug and dark, resists psychic, and is immune to ghost. Next is the bug type. It has 3 weaknesses and 3 types it resists. Unsurprisingly, the best type combo is with steel, since it only has 1 weakness, though it does do 4 times the damage, but this combo resists 7 types and takes 1/4 of the damage from grass and is immune to poison. Moving on to the rock type, which by itself is a bit problematic with 5 weaknesses, but it does resist 4 types. The best combo for rock is with bug. This brings the number of weaknesses down to 3, but at the cost of resistances, which it only has 2 of. The only other decent matchup is with grass, giving it 4 weaknesses, but rock is super effective against 2 types of its grass half, so it can decently defend itself there. But again, this combo also only resists 2 types. Now for the type you've all been waiting for, the ghost type. By itself, it's weak to ghost and dark, resists poison and bug, and is immune to normal and fighting. As I said at the beginning of the video, the best matchup defensively out of any type would have been ghost and dark, since it had 0 weaknesses before Gen 6, but now this combo's only weakness is fairy. It also only resists poison, but is immune to normal, fighting, and psychic. Still really solid, but it is neutral to a massive 13 out of 18 types. Funny enough, ghost and normal type is now slightly better defensively, as it also only has 1 weakness, but resists 2 types, poison and bug, but also is immune to 3 types, so it just has the 1 extra resistance. The next type is the dragoons. By itself, dragon is weak to ice, dragon and fairy, but resists these 4 types. The best type combo is with steel, bumping down its number of weaknesses to only 2, but this combo resists a whopping 8 types, and grass does 1/4 of the damage, plus it's immune to poison. Which is why it's easy to see how strong Dialga is, not only with its great stats, but insane type properties as well. Funny enough, the second best type combo with dragon is water, which is Palkia's typing. This typing also has 2 weaknesses, but only resists 1 type, being steel, and has 2 types that receive 1/4 of the damage. Moving on to the Dark type, which is weak to Fighting, Bug, and Fairy, but resists Ghost and Dark and is immune to Psychic. Now, the best combo is a bit tricky since it depends on what you value, but Poison is one of the best combos since it only has 1 weakness, but resists 4 types and is immune to Psychic. The other best combo being Dark and Ghost mentioned earlier. It only resists 1 type but is immune to 3, so these 2 combos are kind of the same but with properties just flipped. Next is the Steel type, which is one of the best base types for defense since it only has 3 weaknesses but resists 10 types and is immune to Poison. I think hands down one of the best type combos in the game is Steel and Fairy. It's only weak to Fire and Ground, resists 8 types, which is crazy, very resistant to Bug with 1/4 of the damage, so that's 9 types that suck against this combo already, plus it's immune to Poison and Dragon. The only other matchup that comes close to this insane combo is Steel and Bug mentioned earlier, with its only 4 times weakness to Fire, resistance to 7 types, also resisting Grass with 1/4 of the damage, and is immune to Poison, so 1 less weakness in exchange for 1 less resistance and immunity. As well as, surprisingly, Steel and Flying, which is weak to Fire and Electric, but resists these 6 types, has 2 types that only do 1/4 of the damage, and is immune to 2 types. So they're both kind of the same thing, but just in different places. Moving on to the final type, Fairy is weak to Poison and Steel, resists 3 types, and is immune to Dragon. The best type matchup is, as mentioned before, with Steel. It's kind of ridiculous that a type can resist 9 types altogether and be immune to 2. The second best combination for Fairy would be with the Ghost type since it only has 2 weaknesses and resists 1 type being Bug by 1/4 of the damage, but is immune to 3 types, so nowhere near as much defensive capabilities but still decent. So then what are the top 5 best type combos in the entire game? Well, every single one includes the Steel type, and some even tied with each other, but I think Fairy and Steel and Flying and Steel are definitely the best in the entire game, since they both ranked first from my calculations. But what would happen if we introduce a new type? Will these types still be just as powerful? And do we even need a new type? You can find out in this video here.